Welcome to the regular briefing session of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. We're briefing our next meeting, which will take place, it's hard to believe I want to say this, September 2nd, 2021. So we're moving quickly into the fall, both with the commissioners and with the weather. Let's turn the meeting over now to the manager of Forsyth County, Dudley Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, we have obviously the introduction of the items for Thursday, September 2nd. The other item we had was a follow-on from a couple of weeks ago regarding the Highland Avenue property and the nature of that. We actually have representatives from both Holland Homes and United Metropolitan in the audience today. And our understanding of what we heard from the board is that you wanted both of them to be here. You wanted to make sure that they all got an opportunity to sort of say anything that they want to say to you. And so what I thought we'd do is we'd get Kirby to very quickly just lay out where we are with the bid process. And then we're going to flip a coin to decide who goes first. And then we'll give each representatives from each organization just a moment to say anything they want to say, and then we'll go into a question and answer session.
I will tell you, as right now, I really appreciate all those of you in the room who just finished with an hour and 20-minute meeting. You had to sit through something you may not have wanted to sit through, but we're glad you're here, and we hope that you can say what you want to say, and we're listening. Kirby.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. I appreciate the opportunity to be back with you today. And I'll quickly run through sort of where we've been with this property matter. And you'll recall that at your January meeting, the board directed the manager to solicit fair market value offers for the Highland Avenue property. We had an offer period of 60 days. And so the offers that I'll talk about in this session are what we received just within that 60-day offer period. The board received two offers, and that offer period closed April 30th, 2021. And staff brought you back those offers in the form of options at your July 29th briefing. So option A, or the one offer, was from GW Holland Housing Corporation. The initial offer was $100,000. And they stated as the proposed use of that offer that the property would be used to construct affordable housing for the senior and military veteran population. And they noted in their offer that they were a registered North Carolina nonprofit corporation. The second option, or option B, was from United Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church. It was in the amount of $125,000, and the intended use, as stated in the offer, was to construct a centralized park or urban green space, which included pedestrian paths, sitting areas, historical and cultural elements, public art, and playground equipment. There were a couple of strategies that were detailed in that offer. One would be to purchase the property, sell it to the city for the development of the park, or if they were unable to complete that, they would develop it as an open-air food hub. Now, clearly, those have developed somewhat over time, and the board has heard from both of the offerors and has requested more information along the process. So today, we thought we would engage the offerors in that process, let them speak directly to you to clarify any questions you have regarding their acquisition strategy or proposed use of the property.
Let me ask the county manager one thing, and you as well. I want to make sure that all these folks have the opportunity to speak if they would like to about this matter. So let's, if it's all right with all of you, let's set this up as we did the public session. And therefore, when you come up, we'd like to ask you to identify yourself, and you can give us your address for the record in case we need that to be used later on. Is that appropriate?
That sounds terrific. And I guess the only thing I'd add to what Kirby said is that, we will need some action or some direction by the board because it is not currently on an agenda. And so if we will need some action to direct us to go ahead and put it on the agenda, which we can talk about at the end of the briefing if you'd like.
Well, in that case, if you're here to speak about the Highland Avenue thing, let's begin with those who are favor. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can do it this way. So I've got a coin, and because I'm not going to call any church group heads or tails, I wrote U on for United Metropolitan on one side, and I wrote HH for Holland Homes on the other, and I'm going to ask Gordon to flip it, and he's going to decide who goes first.
So he just let the lawyer make that decision.
That is right. That is right. So this is a moment of drama as we decide who goes first. Hopefully y'all. Very good. And so I believe that our retired federal judge Beatty is going to be the representative for them, and he's got a number of folks with him.
He was already on the way before you got that out. Welcome, Judge Beatty.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here. I am Jim Beatty, 3625 Willow Ridge Lane, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I have served on the Board of Deacons at United Metropolitan since 1984. It is in that capacity that I was asked to appear here today to address the issue before the Commission related to the property owned by the county, identified as parcel 683558-7180 and located at 651 North Highland on the corner of 5th Street and Highland Avenue. We certainly thank the members of the Commission for the opportunity to speak here today. As you know, we became aware that the county was putting the property up for public sale, invited bids, open bids be submitted on April 30th, starting with a minimum bid of $100,000. Given that we were already in the process of planning a mixed-use, mixed-income community that is close proximity to where the site is located, we decided independently to submit an offer by the stated deadline. Our offer was submitted without any knowledge of any specific offer being made by any other entity. I will say here there's been a mistaken impression that we were in competition with Holland Homes, which is associated with First Baptist. I emphatically state that we are not in competition. We never have been, and we're not now in competition with them. Based upon our belief that the site would complement our development, we proposed two different options that have now just been related to you. I won't go over those again since you already heard them just recently. With respect to the first proposed use, however, that is for potential green space, we believe that such a use would enhance the livability of the residents of our housing community, along with the entire surrounding community. We knew that the city of Winston-Salem was planning for their East End master plan, included funds for parks and green space. We had hoped that we could partner with the city. No decision had been made, but we had hoped that we could partner with them for that purpose. If we were not successful as suggested in our plan, then our alternative purpose was to have an open-air food hub to serve the entire community. With these objectives in mind, we complied with the April 30th deadline and submitted a proposed bid of $125,000. We certainly were aware, given the public nature of the proposed sale, that if our bid was the highest bid, it would be subject to a 10-day upset period. We were prepared to address that issue when it became appropriate to do so. However, we waited on further notice from the commissioners as to what action they would take. Before the county took any action, to the complete surprise of the leadership of United Metropolitan, we and our congregation were dismayed to read in the Daily News that we were being unfairly pitted against Holland Homes in some type of competition, with the vague suggestion we might be attempting to subvert their intended use of the site for building additional senior homes. Unfortunately and regrettably, some took this as an opportunity to place United Metropolitan in a bad light in the public eye. This was of great concern to our members. As a result, we recently held a open town hall, with the congregation to explain what our position had been. They were assured at the outset that we had legitimate intended use for the property as submitted in our proposal. They were made aware that we made our proposal independently, without any intent to harm Holland Homes. It is our aim today to assure the Commission and the public generally that in submitting our initial bid, we had no intention to harm Holland Homes. As a matter of fact, we wholeheartedly applaud and support their desire to benefit our community in building additional senior housing. It is apparent to us, based upon the somewhat delay that has taken place in deciding whether to accept one bid or the other, that there may be some reservations about accepting what may be the highest bid in this matter has been submitted by the United Metropolitan. There may be other factors that are coming into play. We are also aware that although the property has been publicly put up for sale, the county has received 2 viable cash offers, but the county has the authority at any time to reject any and all such offers. We at United Metropolitan come here today and respectfully request that the county not rescind its offer of the property for sale. We commend the efforts of Holland Homes and First Baptist that is associated with, provide additional housing that will benefit the entire community. For the sake of harmony in our community, throughout our community, we therefore respectfully request that United Metropolitan be permitted by the commissioners to immediately withdraw our bid on the property before the county takes any further action on that matter. Without any hesitation, we publicly encourage the county to sell the site to the Holland Home for its intended use. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Judge Beatty? You did a very good job, sir. Thank you very much. Oh, okay, Fleming Elamine.
Judge Beatty, we've been knowing each other for a long time. I just want to applaud you and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank the commission.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any further comments from United Metropolitan's representatives to follow Judge Beatty? You can come right up anytime and speak. Not a problem. Well, I won't close it. I'll leave it open just in case as we go down the road. How about those who have differing opinions? Do you have anything you'd like to say to us?
So I believe Mr. Jasper Brown is here to speak on behalf of Holland Homes, and you're certainly welcome to come up, Mr. Brown. And
Welcome back, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, my name is Jasper Brown. I live at 3110 Briarcliff Road, Winston-Salem, 27106. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak again on this matter. First of all, I want to commend and thank United Metropolitan, specifically Judge Beatty, for their generous withdrawal in this matter. We have never been, as he said, in a fight with United Metropolitan. This is a matter between Holland Homes and Liberty, as I understand it. It was my understanding that Liberty came and spoke to us. We are a nonprofit housing organization independent of First Baptist. Although all of our board members are First Baptist members, we're independent of First Baptist. Just to reiterate a couple of points. As a nonprofit, we are seeking this housing for the purpose of putting up low-income housing for elderly and veterans. That's what we say we're going to do. That's what we're going to do if the property is, if the bid is given to us. We've been in this business for over 40 years. There's a clear need, of which there's no question, in East Winston and throughout Winston-Salem for affordable housing, especially for elderly people. And we intend to fill that need, or try to fill that need, be a small part of that. Again, I want to thank the commissioners for allowing us to come forward, and I want to thank, again, United Metropolitan for the spirit that they've shown. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions, comments? You've done a good job. Both you and Judge Beatty are very good today.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. County Manager, where do we go now?
okay. We can take direction on that matter, or we can go on through the agenda, let that simmer a bit, and decide what we want to do toward the end of the meeting, if maybe that's
Commissioners,
better.
what would you like to do? Commissioner Linville, Commissioner Wisenhunt, Fleming? You want to take action or delay it until we can discuss it further?
Well, maybe we should ask, I have one question, and the question maybe is, we did, I believe Mr. Brown did present a letter to us with basically indicating that a willingness to pay $125,000 for the site. This was not a part of the upset bid process, which was, the delay has been whether to have an upset bid process or not. And so that was part of that, that's been a little part of that discussion. And I guess in light of, before, I mean, my question had been answered before today, and I was prepared today to say, I'm I'm ready to do the upset bid process. But in light of that, I mean, this has been aired a lot. I don't think there are any other interested folks. I'd be happy to do the other upset bid process, but I'd also be happy to accept their letter if that's appropriate.
If I may correct you, Mr. Martin, it was 126,000.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Whether I'm
Give or take 1,000.
We stand firm on either one you want, either 100,000 or 126,000. Our offer still stands, whichever you want to accept.
Would you add 50 cents to that? So,
We'd rather, of course, pay 100,000.
I understand that. I understand that.
yes, Commissioner Kaplan.
In the spirit of Dr. Martin's concern about our agenda, I suspect we should go on with the briefing and take this up properly at the meeting.
Right.
Is that all right with the commissioners? Commissioner, everyone seems to, oh my golly,
I'm
we've got
okay waiting on that.
this is, everybody's nodding their head in the positive, so let's just take what you've said. Now, look, we don't want to carry this any further than y'all want to, but I think they feel more comfortable if they have an opportunity to let what you said and what the judge said sink in, because it's all, this, from my perspective anyway, opened a door for me, so I have some idea of what's going on a little better than I did. And I'd like to see this go quickly, and if we can get it done next Thursday, I don't see any reason why we
If I
couldn't.
may, Mr. Plowler,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Martin and yourself agreed that it would be the decision would be postponed until today's meeting.
And we've got that.
Just a reminder,
No, you're right, and we're
Well,
getting,
yeah,
We've
the
been
issue
waiting
that we
for a
would-
couple of years
yeah,
now.
that in this briefing, on our meeting on September 2nd, that we would take action. I mean, this is a briefing which is not an action meeting, but we would decide whether it was going to be on the agenda and to act. So I'm certainly fine with the action item occurring on whatever we do on September the 2nd, and that is appropriate because we
of course,
really.
I'll defer to whatever you all decide.
well, here's the way
Just
it
a
works.
reminder.
We announced, we have to advertise in the newspaper, everything, to let everybody know we're going to have a meeting and we're going to vote. We did that today, but we had this meeting set up for a briefing, and this is not, no one has been notified that we're going to vote, so we can't make a definitive decision right now, but I think, that's the reason I mentioned next Thursday, if you can handle that. Now, look, if that doesn't work, you can make suggestions on where I should go and what I should
I'm
do.
deferring to the commissioners.
Okay.
I'm in no position to.
Oh, yes, you are.
Now, we've waited, we've been working on this for well over 2 years.
That's right, yes,
Certainly,
sir.
we can wait a few more days.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that still all right with everybody?
It's
Put it on
fine
there.
with me. I just want a clarification on, is it 126?
Yes.
Okay, that's what.
That's not too bad.
Mr. Chairman, just,
Listen, that offer still stands.
Good.
just,
The taxpayer owns
The
this.
tax, yes, but we will,
I have to look after them.
whatever the commissioners decide,
Let's hear from
either offer.
Commissioner Elamine.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just because of the longevity of this process, can we suggest that on September 2nd, we will make a decision?
I would hope that's what we're going to do, yes.
Okay.
Agreed,
Basically, we can't make motions during the briefing, but
we're just,
we can add this agenda.
we're informally agreeing, we will take action September 2nd.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, my question had nothing to do with acting today. It was a question of whether the letter that was submitted outside of or in lieu of a re-advertisement for an upset bid could be considered. That was my question. It was not to vote today.
The board can decide to accept the offer of $126,000. We've not yet begun the upset bid process, so whatever offer you accept would be published in the paper, and then there would be 10 days for upset bids to come in.
Okay, got it.
Have we all got it? May I call you Jasper? I feel like I know you already.
Yes, you can. Everybody
appreciate-
knows me as Jasper.
Yes, sir, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Manager?
So we will add that as an item, and it will be briefed for the first time next Thursday, so. All right, to dive into the items that are on the printed agenda, you got Item 1 is a public hearing on the ordinance amendment proposed by Planning and Development Services staff to amend chapters 4, 5, 6, and 11 of the Unified Development Ordinances. It revises mixed-use special use provisions and adds provisions for cottage courts. Tiffany White is here. Tiffany White is on the line, maybe. Tiffany, are you there virtually?
I am here virtually. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you. Just make sure you speak loudly and slowly, and we're glad to have you this afternoon.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. For some reason, it is not allowing me to display my content. Amy, if you're there, can you share?
Ashley, do you have that?
Amy or Aaron,
You don't know.
can you share my presentation?
Hey, Tiffany, I'll try to pull it up. Give me 1 second here.
For some reason, it's not allowing me to share content.
Here we go.
Thank you, Aaron.
Got it.
Thank you. Chairman Plyler and Commissioners, my name is Tiffany White. I'm a project planner with Planning and Development Services. I'm presenting today on UDO CC8, which is a petition from Planning and Development Services staff with a request to amend the Unified Development Ordinances to revise standards for 2 separate areas. One, the mixed-use special use district, the MUS district, and second, to add provisions for cottage courts. Next slide, please. Just some background on this item. In 2020, planning staff prepared a report called Innovative and Land-Efficient Residential Development Regulations in an effort to explore strategies for accommodating a greater variety of residential development types in the county. 2 recommendations that came out of that report included developing a planned unit development, or PUD, ordinance and establishing cottage court standards. Additional reports that have been prepared for the city and county have identified the need for 15,000 new housing units countywide by 2027 to meet current and future demand. Legacy also encourages a variety of such housing, specifically promoting a mixture of residential densities and housing types through land use recommendations. Next slide, please. So again, that report that was presented to the planning board recommended looking at planned unit development. In addition, the 2018 UDO code assessment that was done that looked at our overall UDO practices also recommended creating a PUD ordinance. PUDs typically include a mix of residential and non-residential uses in a mixed-use fashion and allow for design flexibility and innovation of style. Winston-Salem and Forsyth County actually had a PUD ordinance from 1973 to 1994 when we established the Unified Development Ordinances, and that PUD was replaced with Planned Residential Developments, PRDs, and the mixed-use special use provisions. While the MUS provisions that were put in place are similar to a PUD, it is not flexible or user-friendly in the way that a PUD can be, especially in its current form. It's not been used a single time since 2006 when some modifications were made to add several GMA-specific development standards. Rather than add another use to the UDO, staff proposes modifying the existing MUS standards to better accommodate those flexible PUD concepts by removing unnecessary district standards, removing references to transit-oriented development and traditional neighborhood development, removing regulations that are duplicated elsewhere in the UDO, and reducing the number of required uses from 3 to 2. Moving on, a second recommendation, separate recommendation that came out of that Innovative Residential Development Report also recommended considering a cottage court ordinance. Cottage courts are developments with small attached or detached housing oriented around a central courtyard open space. And it's a housing type that was recommended by the National Association of Home Builders in its report Diversifying Housing Options with Smaller Lots and Smaller Homes. You can see some images on the slide here of what cottage court developments look like, again with the housing oriented around that central green space. Staff researched cottage court standards across the country. The provisions vary, but most of them address several elements, including the pedestrian-oriented neighborhood character, a minimum and maximum number of units, a maximum building height or size, that orientation, again, around that central courtyard, where the parking is located, limitations on which zoning districts allow this development type, and an increase in allowed density over the underlying zoning. So based on all of that research that we did, staff proposed the following ordinance standards for our cottage court ordinance. Allowing cottage courts in GMAs 1, 2, and 3, those are the growth management areas. Allowing cottage courts in most residential and some non-residential zoning districts, which are itemized in the UDO. A minimum of 4 and a maximum of 14 units per cottage court development. A maximum building height of 30 feet to promote small-scale residential character, requiring 1 parking space per dwelling unit, which is less than the standard residential parking requirement, and allowing a 25% density bonus above underlying zoning. So in summary, PUDs and cottage courts were 2 separate development types that were recommended as part of that original report in 2020. We believe that the revised MUS standards for mixed-use, special-use development will be a more effective tool for creating that mixed-use development, and it will allow the creation of PUDs within the county. The adoption of cottage court provisions will expand housing choice in Forsyth County and allow for more efficient residential development. Both provisions will accommodate design concepts that have recently been proposed by developers, but which have not been developable under current UDO standards. And the proposed standards will also further Legacy's recommendation of allowing varied housing options to better serve community needs. The Planning Board recommended approval of UDO CC8 with a 7-2 vote at its February 2021 public meeting. And at that meeting, 6 people came to speak in support of this provision, and no one spoke in opposition. It went to City Council in April, where again it was approved for adoption into the UDO. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Questions or comments?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
In the vote at the planning board from the 7-2 vote, did the 2 that voted against, did they articulate the reasons they voted against it?
Commissioner Martin, this is Aaron King. I think the concern by those 2 members was this really in the Winston-Salem area and a lot of the urban neighborhoods, this was really a good tool to try to encourage infill development in those areas. And I think there was concern in some of those urban established neighborhoods that, you know, neighbors, that this should be perhaps a rezoning. There should be more input from neighbors in this type of development going into their neighborhoods. I think that was a concern on that piece of it.
Okay, I think I understand that.
Additional comments?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Fleming Elamine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Aaron, I was curious about the cost of one of these units and the square footage it might take to build just one of them.
Yeah, so Commissioner Elamine, that's a good question. I don't know that you save that much money on the cost. You know, a kitchen is a kitchen, so there's some fixed costs, and no matter what type of structure you're building. I think where staff felt like there might be some savings is one, allowing some better efficient use of the land. And as Tiffany noted, We did build in a little bit of a density bonus there, so you could perhaps get an additional, depending on how much acreage you had, perhaps get an additional unit above and beyond what the underlying zoning allows. So if you're having to put water and sewer in a site or stormwater or other development costs, now you may have 5 units to spread that cost over instead of 4 or however the numbers work. So I think there are some opportunities in the development of it to save costs of brick and mortar construction. I don't know that there's much savings in that.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Wisenhunt?
Aaron, do you think only having one parking space will be a deterrent for this?
Commissioner Wisenhunt, I don't think it will be a deterrent. A lot of the trends that we have been observing in planning at the national level, and they're starting to become more prominent and more pronounced, are really a move away from parking regulations or really significantly reducing parking regulations. And so when we put this together, I know Tiffany did a lot of benchmarking of peer communities and other places that have ordinances. Traditionally, if you're building a standard just today, if you're building in a neighborhood, you want to build a single-family home, you're required to have 2 parking spaces. We cut that in half and said you only have to have 1. We did that because we wanted to try to reduce that as much as possible to save on development costs of putting in the development, but also allow for some more flexibility in terms of how you develop that lot so that you're not putting in more parking than you need. That is a complaint we often hear in planning.
Additional comments or questions?
All right, very good. All right, thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Tiffany. All right, the next item is a resolution naming September 2021 as Library Card Sign-Up Month in Forsyth County. We've got Brian Hart back there. Brian, I think, did you want to introduce it at all today, or just want to wait until that next Thursday? Okay. Why don't we hold it? It's pretty self-explanatory, and you'll be able to make that presentation when you get back on the 2nd. Thank you for being here, though. Appreciate that. Item 3 is approval of the minutes for the meeting of August 19th. We'll have those once we get our great clerk staff gets that squared away. We have a number of budget items, and we'll try to get through these fairly quickly. If I could get Kyle Wolf to come on up, and then what I may do is get Kyle to do all his, and then that'll speed us along a little bit. Item 4 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance. It appropriates reserve fund balance for COVID-19 response.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As you'll remember, last December when the board adopted the 2020 PAYGO CPO, as part of that discussion, there was $1.5 million that was set aside and transferred to the general fund to be used by county departments as needed to respond to COVID-19. During last year, there was a total of $302,000 that was transferred to the departments, and with that, only a total of $178,536.35 being spent. We also, in the FY22 adopted budget, appropriated $300,000 for some facility improvements at DSS, and so what we're doing here is there was a balance of $1,021,463.65 of that original $1.5 million that we're reappropriating into the current year to continue to assist departments as needed to respond to COVID-19.
Questions? Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Kyle. I'm going to jump on down to the item 9. Is also his. It's amendment to the 2020 Schools Capital Maintenance Capital Projects Ordinance, transfers funds for ventilation improvements.
Okay. And so at that same, again, with that same action, the board also allocated $500,000 for ventilation improvements at the schools. And so what we had done was we had set it aside. We actually never transferred it into the 2/3 bond CPO. And so that's what this item is doing. Those improvements have been completed. And so we're really just transferring these over into that CPO in order to pay the schools back.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, we can report on those installations and how well they went.
Yeah, I can get with Daryl and get that for you.
You want that in a presentation format or just some written information at the next meeting? Do you care? Maybe a presentation?
That's fine.
Okay.
And could I ask for that, how many schools, if all the schools are now equipped with that, please?
Daryl was here earlier. I'll find out for you.
And we'll get him in next Thursday and try to get us a little report. There's some interest in that. Very good. Item 10 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance to adjust the total number of authorized positions in the sheriff's office.
Sure. And so each year when the annual budget is adopted, the Board of Commissioners fixes the number of employees in the offices of the sheriff and the Register of Deeds. Sheriff Kimbrough has requested to convert 3 part-time courtroom positions to 1 full-time sworn domestic violence investigator. And so this action is essentially increasing the number of full-time positions in the sheriff's office from 599 to 600, as well as increasing the number of sworn positions from 266 to 267, and then reducing the number of part-time positions from 25 to 22. There is a little bit of a cost difference of $4,041 that the sheriff will find within their budget to make up that difference.
And I would say that, so not only when you approve it, you're really approving those position changes and you're approving the money there, but you're also, part of this is the Family Justice Center. As it's opened, that becomes kind of part of a new way he does things. I don't know, Chantel, do you want to add anything to how this is important to that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Manager. And so this will assist the Family Justice Center, which really is supposed to be a one-stop shop type model. And so the sheriff's office would like to dedicate an additional domestic violence investigator. And so if someone comes into the Family Justice Center, they're able to file a 50B. They can also do investigations through the sheriff's office. Winston-Salem PD has presence on site. Kernersville PD has presence on site. Legal aid, family services, and others. And so this really will just assist us with being able to do the full model as it's designed.
A quick question. Were the 3 part-time positions filled that he is swapping in?
I believe they are vacants. I believe they're vacant positions right now.
Okay, so because I was kind of curious if who was doing the work of those 3 people if you're trading them in, but if there no one was doing them, then there wasn't any work being done.
That is correct. Those positions have been vacant for a while.
Got it.
Yeah, this has been on the books to get this done, so this will help. And it really does align with the opening of the Family Justice Center, so.
Got it.
All right, item 11 is also calls it's an amendment to the 2020 Motor Vehicle and Mobile Equipment Replacement Capital Projects Ordinance. Turn it over to you.
Yep. And so, as you know, every year in the annual budget process, we include dollars for replacement of motor vehicles. And so, in the FY22 adopted budget, there was $1.6 million for replacement of motor vehicles. That's basically the level that it's been the last probably 3 years or so. In addition to that $1.6 million, there was $740,000 included in the emergency services budget for additional ambulances as part of the alternate service level that was included this year, as well as a vehicle for fire. So there was a total of $2,340,000 in the FY22 budget for vehicle purchases. Because we do all of our vehicle purchases in the CPO, we're transferring a portion of those funds. There's about $320,000 that will remain in the general fund for equipment purchases associated with the vehicles. And so in addition, that's part of what this action is doing. It's also, another funding source that we have in the CPO is revenue for charges for services to municipalities that are served by the sheriff. We have 1 year of revenue budgeted in the CPO, and we have received all of that revenue, and so we're really appropriating those funds as well as increasing revenue that we will receive this year. And then there were 2 auto accidents where insurance and claims proceeds have been received, and so we're appropriating that money. There is a breakdown within the budget ordinance, so you can see of how those funds will be allocated among fleet, emergency services, animal services, and sheriff. And I'm happy to answer any questions there.
Questions or comments? Okay.
All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, Ian Bumgarner with Budget Management has the next 2 items, so he'll make his way up. Item 5 is an amendment to the FY 2022 budget to increase revenues and preparations for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health. Z. Smith Reynolds, Ian.
All right. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. The first one that I have for you today is Z. Smith Reynolds. Essentially, it's $20,000 that you guys approved for fiscal year 21 for public health, for COVID response. Public health did not spend that money, so what you're essentially doing is reappropriating it for fiscal year '22. And again, it's $20,000 for COVID response. So any questions?
Questions? Nope.
Just curious, why didn't they spend the money?
So I believe the check came in later than expected and just didn't get around to appropriating it and spending it. But they're planning to spend it on advertising for COVID vaccines and the third shots.
And you will see more of that just because we got local money, the state got money, but the state funnels the state money to local, and so by the time it gets here, we're late in the year, and so there'll be a lot of that, as there is a lot of money at the state level. So item 6 is a budget ordinance amendment associated with epidemiology. I'll let you do it.
Okay, so again, so this one's kind of similar to the Z. Smith Reynolds. Again, so you guys approved this back in fiscal year -- with 2 amendments. The total amount of funding for fiscal year '21 was $4,295,851. Of that, we spent roughly $800,000. So what we're going to do is roll revenue of roughly $3.4 million to fiscal year '21 to spend for COVID-related expenses. And again, this was part of the second amendment that you guys approved. And so that we can spend this COVID money until the end of fiscal year '22, so June 30th of 2022. Again, this is just money from the state that we're rolling forward to fiscal year '22.
And do we have items that, I read the background on that, and that's $3 million, again, for COVID. I'm just kind of curious are there plans to spend that?
So a lot of it's temporary staffing, advertising, medical supplies, so purchasing testing kits and various other items that are needed for the vaccination clinic.
And Adam Pendlebury is going to do the next 2. He's the Public Health Department's budget person, so
right.
he can add anything to that as he handles the next 2 items. Thanks,
Thank
Ian.
you.
Appreciate that. All right, Adam, come on up. Item 7 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget for epidemic and communicable disease branch funding. And if you want to respond to Commissioner Martin's comment, you can.
Yeah, to follow up, just in continuing response efforts to COVID-19, that's what the $3.4 million is going to be used for. We were using it pretty heavily for temporary staff. We're also using it for medical supplies, advertising contract, and whatever responses might be needed. So if you'd like a breakdown of the existing state funding that we have and how that's been utilized, we'd be happy to provide that for you.
Well, was this the source of funds that paid for the temporary staffing during the heavy vaccination time in the winter? I mean, because I'd heard we only spent $800,000. Is that the fund that paid for the temporary staffing during December, January, February, March?
Yes, that's correct. So that was included in that.
So I'm just trying to look at, if it took $800,000 to get through that very busy time, we're anticipating another $3 million to spend during this next period of time. I'm getting at orders of magnitude here in terms of the, and I guess it leads to the question, what happens if there's money at the end of June 2022?
It just reverts back to the state.
All right.
Okay. And we might prepare ourselves a little bit for that because there's just lots of sources. And so the complex where you probably understand it better than anybody working with the schools and all, how you allocate dollars coming in, but it's a lot of that. So
I do have 2 items. So what Ian was presenting was funds available for rolling forward. These are 2 new funding streams. So the first one is AA 539, and that appropriates $97,300 for just general COVID response and mitigation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on that funding.
Questions? Nope.
Okay, the next one is AA 361, and this is $115,000 that can be used specifically for a school nurse COVID liaison. I do have Brooke Hamby with the school nursing project here with me if you have any questions about the operations with that.
Questions? Comments?
Yeah, the question is how that's, because I think the school district hired a bunch of nurses during because they had a lot of money also. And I think, well, I may be inaccurate on a bunch of nurses. They hired a lot of extra support. I don't know who they hired. So I'm assuming, and you're going to be the liaison, or this position is the liaison with them? And is the school district continuing all the people that they actually had employed last year? I'm just trying to get at what staffing is leaving, coming, staying, and I mean, there's some
Right, so
curiosities
the
here.
school district had nurse extenders this past year through a contract with an local nursing agency. That has not been continued into this school year. The school district is also going to be participating in the testing program that's been offered by the state and offering screening testing. Right now, they're tentatively planning for athletes and performing arts. With that being said, they do have COVID coordinators in place in the school district. I don't know that those are actual people hired for that role or if that's just a stipend on top of staff that's already hired. The liaison would help serve as a go-between between the health department and the LEA to coordinate those testing efforts, the testing reporting, and help also organize the future vaccine clinics within the schools.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Could I ask you, are you having problems hiring these nurses?
Staffing I will be completely honest, has been a challenge. I think that most of the declinations that I receive are due to salary that we offer in the county level.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Have we evaluated the salaries for our nurses recently to see if there was any chance of increasing the salaries? Are you aware of?
I do believe that some form of salary thing was completed within the past 6 months, maybe. And we did receive a small increase for staff that's already hired. I will say that the hiring ranges were increased, I believe 5%. I think that's what I was told. But the established staff that's already there received 1.25% of their salary.
1.25?
So Commissioner Elamine, we do study salaries for classifications each year. And so the nurses, their series was part of the study that the board approved during the budget process. And so they did receive an increase during this time.
I guess I raised the issue because you were on the front line doing so much of this heavy lifting. So I hope we can come up with some other consideration beyond 1.25. Just a personal perspective.
All right. Any other questions on those items? Okay, thank you, guys. All right. We got a couple of grant items. Item 12 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of one North Carolina and Rural Division building reuse grant funds from the North Carolina Department of Commerce to support Ardal Metal Beverage USA Incorporated. You got the associated budget ordinance amendment, and Kyle Haney's going to review it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Back in May, this board approved an incentive to Ardal Metal Beverage Company to expand here in Forsyth County. It also approved us applying for grants from North Carolina Commerce to support that. We did hear back and we received the one North Carolina grant in the amount of $150,000. And then we also applied for the building reuse grant, which they are meeting today to decide, and hopefully we'll hear very shortly they've received those. Both of those grants have to be sponsored by a local government, and we serve as a local government, so the funds will pass through us to the company. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Okay.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that. Item 13 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a federal Homeland Security grant program awarded to the Emergency Management Department from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety Division of Emergency Management. You got the associated budget ordinance amendment, and Kyle Wolf will review this.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. And so this is actually a grant that the board approved back in October of 2020. The board approved a resolution authorizing acceptance of a federal Homeland Security grant in the amount of $15,000. It was to be used to purchase a portable underwater sonar device. The equipment was not purchased last year. I believe the department knew that they were going to receive additional dollars later on, thinking it might actually come later on in FY21. It's actually just now been awarded, and so what this is doing is it is appropriating the entire full award of $28,415.08. And that will allow for the purchase of this device in October of this year. So it's an additional $13,415. But we are appropriating the full thing because they did not receive any of that grant last year.
Questions?
This is that sonar device that allows you to do some search items that sort of tied into that whole dive team question that we had a couple of years ago. So got some technology on its way. Anything else for Kyle?
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that. Item 14, if I'm not missing something, is a resolution authorizing execution of necessary documents to apply for and receive a grant from Winston-Salem Foundation Incorporated for improvements to the Arboretum at Tanglewood Park. And Kim Gressley, I believe, is going to review this one. Come on up, Kim. We appreciate Cooperative Extension presence at the
You
association
want to talk about
conference.
horses? You want to talk about horses too?
We might, yeah, no, thank you.
No tomatoes.
Chairman and Commissioners, we're glad to be here. This resolution is for your permission that we can pursue some additional funding that will help us as we're replacing all of the irrigation needs in the Arboretum at Tanglewood. $15,000 is what we're wanting to ask for from Winston-Salem Foundation.
Questions or comments?
Should we ask Clemens West?
Let's keep going.
We're just talking about the community.
So while I'm up here, I wanted to give you something.
Wow, nobody ever does that.
I know, it's a gift. I wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for participating in the first night celebration during your commissioners' meetings each year. And every year, we as county extension directors are asked to consider putting in an award for our partnership with all of you. And I couldn't figure out, and no one could, when was the last time you were recognized for your amazing support of our department here in Forsyth County. So Mike is like Ivana, and he's holding up the award. There are actually two of them, one for County Manager's Office and one for all of you as commissioners. And I just wanted to read quickly a couple things that I wrote. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's been a long time. We've been here since 2:15. Yay! But I wanted to tell you just a few things of what got them to select all of you as the winners for 2019, which would have been given last year, but of course they didn't do it last year, so it's 1 year back. In order to address strategic issues and make positive impacts, it's clear that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners, Forsyth County Government, and North Carolina Cooperative Extension are phenomenal partners. Forsyth County Government and Extension exhibits a quality partnership utilizing best practices in resources, fund development, facilities, staffing needs, inclusivity, and innovation, which all blend into a strong collaboration built on trust. The Forsyth County Government team, including commissioners, have had numerous opportunities to advocate for extension and have done so with aplomb. This relationship, built on understanding essential mission statements and initiatives, is important to residents of Forsyth County. Through strategic planning and opportunities, Extension has had the chance to grow and develop in its service mission through creative lenses, which enables county commissioners and the Forsyth County government team to fully understand and appreciate the ultimate goal of all of us to improve the lives of people through research-based programming.
Is it possible to get the name of the man who helped you, who demonstrated the award and everything? He's just as quiet. Find out who he is. He did a good job.
This is Mike Bowman, your soil and conservationist. Soil and water. Mike is here because we're here for something else. But I told Dudley I wanted to squeeze in this award for all of you because it's very heartfelt from our department.
Good.
We can't do what we do without you. I came from a state where we didn't have this kind of partnership, and I value it very much. So thank you. You're the winners and everyone else is jealous, so there you go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right, item 15 is also Kim's, and Mike's going to be able to help her with this a bit as well. It's a resolution authorizing a contract between Forsyth County and Resource Institute Incorporated for engineering and design of repairs to streams and drainage ways affected by Hurricane Florence and subsequent flooding. So I'll turn it over to Kim.
Thank you, Dudley. So with me today is Mike Bowman, who is our soil and water conservationist in the Soil and Water Department. And we also have Alan Walker in the back there with Resource Institute in case you have questions. The item for consideration is a contract with Resource Institute for engineering and design services. The contract is part of a project that was approved by the Board of Commissioners near the end of 2020, which utilizes grant funding from the USDA and North Carolina Department of Agriculture. The services were bid out through the RFQ process, and Resource Institute was selected as the vendor who could provide the services within the budget. The total grant funds received for this project are $444,364, with engineering costs of $90,000 and construction and permitting costs of $354,364. The deadline for this project has been extended to May 27th of 2022.
So I'll give a little bit of background on this. I don't know if you remember back, we've had a lot of flooding recently, but Hurricane Florence had some pretty devastating impacts in the community. They were sort of widespread. I mean, that's sort of the nature of how we deal with flooding here. And there were, these funds became available, with the need to identify areas that were impacted. So this is one of those cases where there's a lot of engineering that's needing to be done on a number of sites. Not that much money to fix it all, but at least you'll understand what it will take to get those areas fixed. And there's one area that's over near Commissioner Plyler's home so this is an unusual thing because this is one of the rare instances where we can go on private property and actually fix something that's going to have some impacts. If you know, with stormwater funds, there's actually...
Wait a minute, Ted.
I know, there's barriers to being able to do stuff on private property because it's sort of one of those questions, where do you start and where do you stop? But, this is a kind of a unique opportunity we have here. We're going to do a lot of engineering. We'll do as much construction as the funds let us do, but this gets us started. It's hard money to spend, I guess, is
That's
one of the
good.
things that I'm saying, so.
Sure,
And
I'm
I don't
glad
know
you
if-
came in today.
Yeah, I don't know if engineer wants to say anything, was that mostly accurate? Okay, well, very good. So, but it is, and it's been out there a bit, and we need to go ahead and get this done. But it's a shame, it's one of those things that's hard money to administer, but we ought to use it in the community because there's lots of needs, so. And all of us know folks who have dealt with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jim. All right. Very good. Item 16 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of defibrillators and Lucas chest compression system devices for emergency services, quick response vehicles. I believe that Kyle's going to handle that one.
Commissioners, so this resolution is necessary to purchase additional equipment for 3 new quick response vehicles, specifically Lucas chest compression devices and defibrillators. The board actually approved the purchase of new defibrillators earlier this year, and while that resolution did approve future purchases as well, it said the price needed to remain the same. But the defibrillators that we purchased earlier this year were replacements, and so there was a significant discount based on old equipment being turned in. As these are new defibrillators that need to be purchased, the price is higher, and that's what's necessitating this action, this approval. And then also the board approved a purchase of Lucas chest compression system devices earlier, or actually in last fiscal year. But that resolution did not include any authorization for future purchases, which is why we're bringing this one forward. So I can try and answer any questions that you have on this item as well. But I know that the Lucas chest compression was a sole source product that was approved, I guess, that was approved earlier last year. It is, I believe.
Doesn't break your phone.
That's correct, right.
I think Commissioner Martin actually saw that device get used on the scene, and
It's obviously a very valuable tool.
yeah, and it is sole source. So. Any questions on that? All right. Item 17 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and Spatial Data Consultants for digitizing historical aerial imagery. Joseph Sloop, come on up. Review that.
Good afternoon. Let's see here. Okay, just really quickly, conscious of time, I just want to first say that this is a collaboration for Forsyth County Register of Deeds, the City County Planning Department, and Map Forsyth. We all have roles within this project, but the project is that we have a little over 4,600 hard copy imageries of the county, the entire county, and they span from 1951 to 1994. And so what we're wanting to do is digitize all of those hard copy images and put them into a digital format so that then we can put them out on Geodata Explorer, Tax Parcel Viewer, those things, and share it with the community. Map Forsyth project manager, Register of Deeds, is covering the cost in their budget, and then Planning Department currently houses all these images in their space. So I'm going to jump to this because, quite honestly, an image is worth 1,000 words. So on the left-hand side is the original. So we just had it, went to like a Kinko's and just said, hey, can you scan this? Let's see what it looks like. And that's what it turned out to be. After research and searching out companies who can do this professionally, the one on the right hand, the restored image, is what we're looking at getting. And so what they do is they go in and clean up any of the marks on it. They backlight it. Then they put it into, so you have all these square images that have to be stitched together to make one huge image of the county. They do that. And then also what they do with each image is they will put an XY coordinate on it so that it fits in its proper place in the county. And so by doing this project, we will then have from 1951 through current, roughly every 4 years of the county. So now you can all look at land use change and lots of other things. So pretty.
So the only thing I'd add to this one is this is probably not something I'd bring to you if we were going to use plain old taxpayer money to get from image on the left to the image on the right. The Register of Deeds has been good enough. As you know, she's got that earmarked automation money that that flows through the state back to her, and she's got a fairly significant fund balance. We went to her and said, do you believe there's benefits in Register of Deeds in terms of looking at what properties look like when, and she was really good about it, and she said absolutely, and I would be absolutely okay funding this through that mechanism. And so we would just know me well enough to know I probably wouldn't bring you something that was $125,000 if it was image A on the left to the right under normal circumstances, but the fact that that we've got this source of revenue and the Register of Deeds sees value in it, I think it will help us sort of chronicle what's happened geospatially in the community. I think that's where Joseph sees the benefit as he does his work in Map Forsyth. You'll be able to do a lot of kind of historical work around this. So it's a great project. It's expensive, but we've got a good revenue source for it.
Agreed. Just out of curiosity, is this kind of special? Did you bid this project with the Spatial Incorporated or whatever guys that did that?
So yes, they are very specialized in this. This is they're one of the few companies who actually also work with the state on the ortho projects, and so we went to a lot of other companies and asked them to produce similar type things. They could most of them could produce only a scan image. They couldn't put the XY coordinate with it and other things, so that's why we went with the spatial data. They're local, they're just out of High Point, because we had a little bit of fear of if we had to transport some of these documents too far, just because of the age of them, and some of them are starting to get kind of worn.
Okay, so you basically have special conditions and a quality that puts a specialized why do business with a single vendor like that, okay?
Yes, sir.
Additional comments?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joseph. All right, you got two items that Cindy Firkins is going to review. They both deal with social services and both deal with transportation. You got a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Winston-Salem Transit Authority. Item 18 is for non-emergency medical-related transportation services. And then item 19 is for the purchase of bus passes. And Cindy is on the line, I believe. Hey, Cindy.
I'm here.
Okay, just
Hi.
speak loudly
Hi.
and slowly since we're virtual.
Good afternoon. The first item is the interlocal agreement for the NEMT transportation. The rates for WISTA they remain at $22.57 per one-way transportation trip. We're asking for execution of this agreement for this current year and future fiscal years for up to 2 additional terms through June the 30th of 2024. The state WISTA pays all the transportation providers directly. DSS determine the eligibility. We verify the trip billing. We upload all of the trips into NC Tracks so that the state can pay the transportation provider directly. So there are no funds encumbered in the contract, but we are responsible to maintain the contract and ensure compliance. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Not a one.
Not a one. Okay, second item is the WISTA bus passes. This contract is an amount not to exceed $35,500. We have done this amount for several years. The bus passes have remained the same amount. We opt to purchase an estimated 1,800 monthly bus passes, and these are reimbursable state and federal. We also would like to have the agreement through June the 30th, 2022, with an additional 2 one-year terms through June 30th, 2024. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. So the rest of the items, I heard a little feedback. Okay. Of the other items, you've got item 20, which is a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor collector in the amount of $1,301.18 from the North Carolina Vehicle Tax System. John Burgess is in the audience if you've got any questions there. And then you got our reports, Human Resources Report for the month of June and July of 2021, the Contributions-Based Benefit Cap Report for July, and the Quarterly Fuel Surcharge Report. And that is it for today.
We've had a heck of a day.
We have.
Yeah, may I make one comment?
Yes, sir, please do.
I hope I'm right about this. I think school starts next week. Right?
It does.
And I hope that our constituents will have patience. And I've seen some reports about parents ripping masks off teachers and all sorts of stuff.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately. And I hope our constituents have patience. Let us work through this COVID issue.
That's a good idea. Any further comments from the commissioners?
Move approval to adjourn.
Ted, she beat you to the
Second
punch. Lori Wisenhunt has motion to be adjourned. Don Martin, a second to adjourn.